Hey everyone, so welcome. Thank you for coming today. I'm sorry that I started a little bit late. My internet was struggling a little bit to get connected, so fingers crossed that we will hopefully be able to get through this training. So I am really excited that you are here today. I'm going to try my best to get through everything. Please know that if you are leaving questions or comments for me during the live video, I will look at the end, but I'm not going to look during the actual session. So I just wanted to start out by telling you a little bit about who I am. So my name is Michelle Rose, and I currently teach at a full-time K-12 virtual school. So I was teaching at a virtual school before everyone's school closed, and now everyone's kind of being required to be a virtual teacher. So I do have several years of experience teaching virtually full-time. And so classes that I teach include 8th grade general music, high school music appreciation. I also created and direct the extracurricular instrumental ensemble, the virtual band / orchestra, and the virtual choir. And in addition to what I do at my school, I also direct the IMES, the International Music Education Summit Virtual Honor Band. So definitely, if you're looking for some really awesome virtual PD, check out the IMES conference coming up in June. There are just so many incredible presenters. I've been a part of it for the past 3 years, and shout out to Elisa because she's really awesome for organizing and putting it together. So I just want to put this disclaimer out here that at this moment my virtual school is still open and running. So I am still teaching my normal full-time job as it was, before there was all of this in place. And so if you are asking questions or you're tagging me in things or sending me emails, I am going to get back to everyone as soon as I can. Just know that my life is supposed to be functioning as normal in terms of school, so I am teaching full days of school and then trying to help in the evenings. So just be patient with me, please, on that. If you want to connect with me, I spend most of my time on Instagram, though I have spent a lot of time on Facebook, probably more in the past week than I have in the past 3 years. But Instagram is the main place that you will find me. I am at _musical_rose, or you can check out my website, themusicalrose.com. So now that you know a little bit about me, let's kind of dive in today. All right, so today I'm going to show you how I create a full virtual ensemble using SmartMusic and GarageBand. And so, as I've said in many of my trainings, and I should take this away, as I have said in so many of my trainings that I've done, is all I ask is that you keep an open mind through this. And so just kind of take it in. If it works for you, awesome. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But when it comes to virtual education, an open mind about the challenges we're facing can be very helpful, especially if you want to do certain things. Can't always do them the way you've always done them. So just keep an open mind about what I'm going to show you today. And so I also want to put this statement out here. I know there's been a lot of talk about, how much we should be doing, or feeling overwhelmed, or, not having the resources, or your kids don't have internet or devices. And these are definitely all issues that we need to address for sure, especially preparing if this is ever going to happen again. But I just want you to know that you do not have to do this. You just make sure you know your students, know yourself, and do what is best for you and your students. My goal with this and all of these options and trainings that I've done is just to show you that these things are an option for people who want to do them. It's not necessarily going to be the best fit for everyone, I know that, but it is just an option in case you are interested. So let me put this out here right away. So I have been very clear. I want to set expectations in all of my sessions, and this one is included. This session is not going to show you how to make an exact replica of Eric Whitacre's virtual choir. So if you think that is what I'm going to show you how to do today in an hour, that is, you are not going to leave this session with a beautiful Eric Whitacre style video. He has a whole team of people who are professionals in, videography and editing and all of these things. I am just a humble music teacher, and so you are not going to come away with an exact replica. This is also not going to show you how to compile videos of your students, so this is going to be an audio only option. Syncing up video and audio is kind of a whole extra level, and I have opted just to stick with audio, and then you can always display program notes and pictures related to the piece as the piece is playing. But I'm not going to show you how to make one of those videos where you can see everybody singing and playing at one time, because those are time consuming. So I'm going to show you a viable option that is not going to take a ton of your time once you kind of have it down. So just want to set those expectations on the outset. I have so much respect for Eric Whitacre. He was the inspiration for me to create a virtual ensemble choir and band at my school at the K-12 level, but I can't do what he does with my budget, my expertise in that. And I think that's okay. We don't need to have perfect videos in order for our students to have great musical experiences. So I developed this model and this virtual ensemble because I teach kids all over the state of North Carolina. I had lots and lots of students and families asking me for performance opportunities, and I strongly believe that every child deserves a high quality music education no matter where they attend school, whether that be brick and mortar or online. So that really inspired me to figure out a way to make what felt impossible, taking this rehearsal and final performance and putting it in the virtual space and making it possible for my students. So now I kind of figured out how to have a rehearsal, and if you want to check out how I have virtual rehearsals, please do a search in the Music Educators Creating Online Learning Facebook group for mock choir rehearsal, mock band rehearsal, mock elementary general music lesson. So those will kind of give you ideas on how to do that. But once I had a rehearsal and I was getting my students to play in SmartMusic, I was thinking, how can I have my students hear what they sound like together as a full ensemble without spending a ton of time compiling a video? And so this is kind of the method that I have come up with. Again, I just want to note that I'm not an expert in sound. I'm not an expert in SmartMusic. I'm not an expert in Sibelius or GarageBand or anything. This is just a music teacher trying to make it work. So if you are an expert in those things and you know an easier way to do that, that's awesome. Definitely share. But like I said, this is just the method that I've kind of put together to make this work. And so with practice, so I've been doing this for 3 semesters now. This is our 3rd semester with the virtual ensemble. Now I can put these recordings together for my students in under an hour. So it is feasible, and it allows my students to kind of hear each other more than just at the end of the semester. So it's a great way to have students listen to each other. Oh, my dog is digging a hole on my couch in the background. Sorry. I'm sure if any of you have done synchronous lessons in the past couple of days, this is just the new normal. But it is very doable, and it's not going to take up a ton of your time after you practice. The first time you do it, it probably will, but as you do it more often, it becomes pretty easy. Okay, so we're going to go through the steps first to set things up in SmartMusic. And so I'm going to take you step by step of what I do for my students. And so first, it is so important not to overwhelm students with a million assignments. So you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I have access to all these really cool warm-ups and these cool exercises that you've always wanted to try, and you have access to all these different things. Don't try to assign a million things to students. It will overwhelm them. So I highly recommend you create one full warm-up that includes a couple different elements: long tones, articulation, dynamics, whatever you want it to be, and then put it in a single file and tell them that they're going to use this warm-up every time they practice. So that way you don't have to assign a warm-up every single day or every week. they'll just have this warm-up that they can use. And so I've created, sorry choir people, I've only had time to create a full band, because I kind of had the full band one already done, and full orchestra rehearsal or warm-up. So if you look in the description of this live video, you can see that there's a link there. You can download the music XML file and you'll be able to upload it right to SmartMusic. If you want to follow along with me, I'm going to do exactly that. So I always label my warm-ups as do not submit in all caps. I find that if I just put warm-up, some student will practice it and then submit it, and then they will not have access to it anymore. So I put in all caps, do not submit, practice only. And then I put the due date at the end of the semester, so that way it's always at the bottom and students all find it. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like from the student end in a moment, but first I'm going to show you how to upload the warm-up and go through the process of that. So you already know how to do this, just bear with me for a moment. But in order, so if you're in SmartMusic and you go to this top right, the waffle menu, and then you click on Compose. Then import music XML, MIDI, or SMZ. And so I have the band warm-up in B flat, which I, like I said, you can access and download for free from my website. The direct link is in the description. There is an orchestra version as well, but I'm just going to work with the band file. So you just press open and it'll load everything. I'm going to take a sip of water while that's loading. Okay, so congratulations, click go. If you need to adjust anything, you shouldn't. The correct instruments should be in place already. I'm not going to go through and take a look at them for time's sake, so I just press OK on all of them. Congratulations, you have this warm-up. Now you can assign it. And so you can see, again, it has long tones, slurs, B-flat scale, thirds, and articulation. So again, kind of a comprehensive warm-up. You're not assigning students all these different things. It's just going to be one that they can go to and use. You can have a couple of warm-ups if you want. But again, I would keep it as simple as possible right now. So having one or maybe two warm-ups, fine if you want to give them, another key, but simple is the best right now. Okay, so to save it to your, to be able to access it in SmartMusic, you're going to go to File, and then click on this little arrow with the cloud. That'll save it to your SmartMusic account. If you want to change the name, make sure you press Edit Name before you press Save. I'm just going to keep it that way. And so then to assign it, you'll just go into your content. And so here it is right here. Okay, so the process of assigning, again, press Assign. Okay, so this is where you want to change the label for it. So do not submit, all caps, especially for, some of those kiddos, just like all caps, do not submit this, please, because it's just going to complicate things. And then I put practice only in case they missed the first all caps. Assignment type is just custom. And then I just usually click metronome accompaniment in my part for anything that students are not going to submit. So they have, it doesn't, since they're not going to submit it, it doesn't really matter. And then make sure you have allow both melodic and percussion. It does default to that. Okay, click next. So in the instructions, I put again, do not submit. This is for practice only. Use this warm-up to play before you rehearse and practice any of your pieces. Okay, and so this will pop up reminding students again, please do not submit this. This is for practice only. Pressing next. So I don't have grades for my ensemble because it's extracurricular. So if you have a grade system, you can implement that. But I just put everything as 100 to just kind of keep it simple. And that way, I mean, again, it doesn't really matter because students are not going to submit this, but just to give you an idea. And press next. Okay, so you've created this template. Now you can assign it. And so I am just going to, for the sake of this instruction video, just use my instrumental ensemble that I already have set up. And so you want to have it due on the last day of the semester, or the second to last day of the semester, so that way it always shows up at the bottom and it's not getting mixed in with the other assignments. So I go all the way, I think June 30th is the last day, June 29th is the last day I can assign it. So that way it'll show up at the very bottom. And then you can just leave all these checked. Okay. So now it's been assigned. So that way on the student end, if they go in, and like I said, so I've created a student account so I can see what it looks like on my student side. So if you're wondering like why these are all overdue, I don't actually complete the assignments. I just go in and I kind of, sometimes I share my screen and say, okay, this is exactly what you're going to, click on. But here it is. Down here it says, do not submit, band warm up in B flat, practice only. And I can open that. It's always going to be at the bottom. Okay. So again, same thing. So students can practice that way. So you will want to do the same thing for, your pieces. So I highly recommend creating a full piece practice only file for students with performance tempos. So again, labeling it as do not submit, piece title, practice only, and put the due date at the end of the semester. So that way students have the opportunity to practice any part of the piece if they want to. But in a moment, you're going to see I only recommend, students, having assignments due little chunks, little phrases at a time so it doesn't overwhelm them. But you always want to give students that option if they want to go back and practice a specific part, if they want to practice the whole thing. So you'll go through the same process, same thing. If your piece is not in the SmartMusic library, you can input it. It does take a little bit of time, but I find if you're going to be out of school for the rest of the year, it is definitely worth doing that. And then, so go through the same thing. Again, these are the actual practice only files for my students, and you can see right here they're due at the very end. So my students can always find the warm-up and where they can practice both pieces, even if they have just a couple of measures for the pieces that they're preparing for the week. Okay, so that takes you through a basic kind of like how to create that, how to get students started in SmartMusic. So now let's kind of get into how to set it up for your virtual ensemble. So you're going to choose a small section of music for each piece per week. So you don't want to overwhelm students. Do not assign them to play the entire piece. Do not assign them something due every day. Pick one section that you want them to work on for the week, and then assign that to be due at the end of the week. If you want your students to practice every day, you can encourage them to do so. Say, okay, you need to open this up, and I can see, there are badges in SmartMusic. Okay, who can get the badge for practicing every day or whatever? I don't remember exactly what it's called. And say, okay, we're going to practice this throughout this entire week. On Friday, you're going to submit your best take. On Sunday, you're going to submit your best take, whatever you decide. I don't know why this is giving me an error. I know that's how to... Okay. Sorry, I just had to fix it. Okay, so you will want to label it clearly. So even though SmartMusic comes with due dates, again, I find that students don't see things sometimes. And so I put it right in the label that they are going to read first. Due date, name of the piece, and the measures. So here's an example. Due 3/27, fire dance, measures 1 through 16. And so that way students know exactly what they're doing, when it's due, and also it helps to put the measures, especially at first, so students know they're not going to be playing this entire piece. they've not used SmartMusic before, when they say, oh, it's just a couple of measures, I can do that. So you're going to want to turn on metronome, set tempo to exactly. And so I'm going to show you how to do this real quick. So let me grab the... Okay, so I'm going to show you how to upload a piece and set a tempo and all that. So again, going into Compose, I have my, and so importing Music XML. And so I created a virtual ensemble test in B flat. This took me 30 seconds. It is not very beautiful or extensive, but it is just to serve purposes. And so it is loading. Okay, so we're gonna go through, press OK, 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 OK a million times. I know some of this is not input correctly. Like I said, it took me 30 seconds to do this. I just wanted to show you. Okay, so here is a thing. If you have a Ritardando, you have to kind of do that manually. So and you have to make sure that you kind of input that. So I put it in Sibelius beforehand. And so when I wanted to have the Ritardando, I changed the tempo to slow down note by note. So that way the metronome click is the same for every student. So every student is playing the same exact Ritardando. So I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this, but it will. So if you can't hear this, I'm sorry. I don't, like I said, I think a week ago, I don't do a lot of these Facebook Lives. I'm not as familiar. In Zoom, you can easily share the sound, but so if you can't hear it, I'm sorry, and it'll just take 2 seconds. But here it is, and you can hear that the entire ensemble has a Ritardando all at the same time. So that's how you can kind of artificially force a Ritardando that all students are going to have. And all students will have that metronome doing that same exact thing. So I did that in Sibelius. You can, I think, do that in Compose. I'm not as familiar, but obviously you can see here that there are these tempo changes that I had built in. So those will show up for students. Okay, so let's go ahead and assign this one. So save it to your SmartMusic account. All right. Manage my content. And so now we're going to assign it as if this is something that we're actually going to use to put together for a full ensemble piece. And even though I'm doing this with band, you can do it with choir, you can do it with orchestra. It's possible. I use it for all my kiddos who are in band, orchestra, and choir, or play those instruments. Okay, so 30-second virtual ensemble test in B flat. My favorite new hot piece. Get it, download it, nowhere. This is not going on. Assign. And, all right, so I'm going to change the format of this. So remember, you want to put the due date first. Do 3/27. And then delete this on the end. And put measures, so this is only 4 measures, but 1 through 4. So imagine this is like 100 measures long. I would do more than 4 measures. I would do at least, 2 phrases maybe, but you don't want to do huge swaths. You don't want them to play like 60 measures at a time. If you want them to do 2 sections, break it up, break it down. It's better to have students do a couple of small chunks than one giant long assignment. I have found that when I assign longer chunks or whole piece, they don't get turned in as often because students, if they especially have so many kiddos who are, really high achievers and they want to get that perfect score. And so if they, mess up towards the end, well, then they feel like they need to start over again. When it is short, little chunks, it kind of prevents that from constantly happening and increases the likelihood that they will turn it in. Okay, assignment type is just custom. Now for this, make sure, so I take off my part and accompaniment so that way students can't have this playing through in case they don't have headphones. But you have to have metronome on because this is the secret sauce to making sure that your parts are going to line up. Okay, now, next. So in my instructions for students, I always tell them, please remember to record with headphones. So I know at this point not all students are going to be able to do that, but it will cut down on the metronome click coming through. So encourage students to record with headphones as much as possible. And then depending on your band, choir, orchestra, whoever, my kids will again try to make things perfect, and really we're at the rehearsal stage still, so we're not at our final performance. So I say it's okay if you turn in something that's not 100% perfect right now. We're still learning. I want them to obviously get better, but I also want to hear them make mistakes, because that's how I know what to rehearse, because I'm not hearing them live every day. Again, if you want to see how I do virtual band rehearsals, virtual choir rehearsals, definitely search for that in the group, the Facebook group. But the way that I hear what I need to help my students with is through these SmartMusic assignments. And so I tell them it's okay to make mistakes. Now, obviously, I want them to practice and try their best. So use your discretion what you're going to put in this box. If you want to put practice until Friday and then submit your best take, it's okay if it isn't 100% perfect. And so again, know your kiddos. If that's what my students need to hear, since it is extracurricular, my students who are in the virtual ensembles are those kids that are showing up to rehearsals that they are not being graded on. And so they're the kids that also won't submit unless it's absolutely perfect. So I have to encourage them. You got to know your kids on that. Okay. So the important thing is, one, if you don't want your students to play the entire piece, to make sure that you put in, so if you only wanted them to play 2 measures, put in that there. But the most important thing is this exactly. So make sure that the tempo is set to exactly, because again, that is going to ensure that all students are playing exactly the same tempos. And so even though this says exactly 80, if you have this Ritardando built in, it will still play it. So yep, so you can see, so you can see here, this is 100, but you can see it does change as you get along. So all right, so after that, enter that, press next. Same thing, if you usually do grades, you can use your discretion. I just put everything as 100 because my band and choir are not graded. And then save. Then you're going to assign it to students. So I put that I wanted it due on the 27th. So I'm going to put it due on the 27th, which is next Friday. And then press next. And then I'm done. And then here's what it will look like on your student side. So let's go in. If any of my students are opening up to practice tomorrow or later today, they're gonna be like, what is this random assignments? Okay, so now you can see right here it is. Due 3/27, 30-second virtual ensemble, test in B flat, measures 1 through 4. I know there are only 3 measures, bear with me, and the due date. And if you're wondering why haven't I assigned my students anything else, this week was also really bananas for us. Even though we're continuing school as normal, lots of my students' lives were impacted by people being at home, them having to take care of people, it being loud, all these things. So we are doing a week of just catch up, and next week we're going to kind of reconvene. But okay, so here it is. Then you're going to tell your students to complete this by the due date. So when they go in, and I'm going to go back to my slide real quick so you can just see this written out as a visual, maybe. So the thing here too, and I forgot to put this in the description, but you want to try to encourage students to press save before submitting. And so there is not this feature where you can download as a teacher all of your students' recordings. Only the students can. So maybe if enough people ask SmartMusic, oh please don't kill me, Ryan, for saying this, we can get this feature eventually. Sorry, but I don't want to send a mob after anyone. But right now, you can't. The only way to get an individual student recording is for them to press save before they press submit. So when a student opens up an assignment, okay, they press OK. All right, this pops up. When they go to record, I'm just going to press record. It's going to be wrong. They'll go through this. Okay, so it'll count them off, and it's all wrong. Blah, 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 blah. You can see that nice manual retardando. Okay, so before they press submit here, if they press save, that will download the track here. So again, you can put in the description, and I forgot to put this in the description, for your students to press save, and then they can upload that to like a Google Drive folder or wherever you want. Now, if your students do not do that, because they forgot, or you forgot, or that's going to be a hassle, there is a workaround that I found using Screencast-O-Matic. And so, okay. Okay, I did not put this in there. All right, so Screencast-O-Matic, if you press record, and so Screencast-O-Matic is free for up to 15 minutes. Hopefully you won't need to record a 15-minute piece. You just need to make sure that computer audio is selected yes. And so again, this is kind of a time-consuming workaround. I'm not saying this is a perfect fix, okay? So don't come at me if you're like, this is gonna take forever, I have 80 kids. So definitely the first way is preferable. But if you have a kid press submit before they save it, this is a workaround that I found, and I just do this too for my kids since I don't have 100 kids right now. So if you press, so make sure, again, computer audio is checked, press record. And then on the teacher side, you'll be able to open up a student's assignment. So if you press play, and it's all wrong, that's my voice. You can see that. Okay, so then pause it, press done, and then press edit video. So like I said, this is a long workaround. I know it's not perfect, but it is something. And so you'll go to computer, and you can export the computer only file. So it'll export only what sound is coming out of your computer. So in this instance, the track. And so then you might label it as something that you can remember and put it in your folder with all the other recordings. And so then you can export that. So okay, and so then you can use that in GarageBand. Okay, so that is kind of part one, and I know I'm at 40 minutes already, so please bear with me, but I promise we're gonna get to the end product. And this, I'm walking you through it step by step, but this is a process that takes me, less than 10 minutes to set up now that I'm familiar with SmartMusic. My kids are familiar with SmartMusic. I know the labels I'm gonna use, all of that. Okay, so some real quick SmartMusic Pro tips. Like I said, you have to manually plug in the Ritardando if you want this to work. So you have to slow the tempo down every couple of beats manually. I highly recommend showing students how to practice and give them a checklist. And so there is an article I wrote on SmartMusic's blog that says, I signed up for SmartMusic, now what? And so that kind of gives you a couple of in-depth pointers. And also I have a list there that students can follow along as they practice. Again, if a student forgets to save, you can use that workaround with Screencast-O-Matic. It's not ideal, but it is something. And then here is the next thing you want to do before we get into the GarageBand, putting everything together. So I highly recommend creating a click track by using Screencast-O-Matic with whatever piece you're using in SmartMusic, and just have the metronome selected and just record the metronome. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. There might be an easier way to do this. I don't know. This is just kind of the most efficient way that I can guarantee that this is going to be the exact same metronome click as what my students have, especially if you have those retardandos. Again, you don't have to program that in. If you just record the metronome click in SmartMusic, it's going to be the exact same metronome click that your students are hearing. So real quick, I'll show you. All right, so I'm going to delete this. You can just delete these videos afterwards. Once you have the sound from them, you don't need to save them unless you really want to. But usually, like, I do this, so I like sit on my couch and turn my sound down, and I'll just kind of watch TV and you know, just go through and record these videos. You know, it's just kind of busy work that you can do with something else in the background. Okay, so again, going into record, this is how to create the click track. So I am going to delete this take. And then I'll go back. And so you want to just make sure that accompaniment is not checked. My part is not checked. The only thing that's checked is metronome. So you're going to press record. And then you can just press play. And if you can't hear the click, I promise there's a click happening right now, and it's slowing down. Okay, so that will give you the click. And so you'll just press done and then edit video. I know GarageBand is freaking out because I keep changing things. Again, going into computer, export WAV file, and then just label it as your click track or whatever. But again, that gives you something that you're going to use later to line your student parts up. All right, I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Don't forget to hydrate or dihydrate, as some of my students have told me. All right, so at this point, we are going to pretend we have all of our student recordings and the click track ready to go. So again, your students can either submit those, they just have to press save before they press submit, and then they can upload it to a central location. Or you can go into Screencast-O-Matic and record, and then have that just download the computer sound only. So I'm going to get out of Screencast-O-Matic for now because my computer is overheating. Give it one less thing to think about. And I'm going to get out of this and this. All right, so here is what we're going to do next. Okay, so before we go on, 1, let's take a deep breath. And 2, I'm going to show you how I put together part of the IMES, or the International Music Education Summit virtual honor band piece in GarageBand. You can use Audacity if you're looking for something free that's not Mac specific, or any other program you want. I'm showing you GarageBand because this is just what I know how to do best. So if you need help with Audacity, someone else might be better suited to kind of give you more specifics. I can do like the basics, but again, GarageBand is my jam, so that's why I'm showing you in this specifically. Okay, so the virtual honor band is still rehearsing, so we're not done yet. We're gonna have a rehearsal on Tuesday, hopefully. I don't know how many kids have their instruments. I know my trumpet player, who is in my virtual school, will definitely have hers, but I don't know about anyone else. I'm going to send an email out about that probably tomorrow, just to check in on my students. But this is not a finished product, so again, it's rehearsing, so not everything is perfect, so just keep that in mind. Also, if you're wondering why there's this kind of strange instrumentation, so the first time that you do anything, you know, it's kind of, especially like doing something like a virtual band, it's kind of like, okay, what is that? And so this is the first year we're doing it. We have an awesome core group, a small group of kids, so their instrumentation is pretty varied. I also just chose, if I had more than one kid on a part, I just have one part for the sake of brevity. But this is a flex arrangement, so it's not going to be a full band. It will be a flex arrangement. It will still sound full enough. But this is also my plea for any arrangers or composers out there. Please make more flex band arrangements for grades 3 through 5. There are kids who can play at a higher level, but you know, they have smaller programs, especially female or Black, Indigenous, people of color composers and arrangers. Okay, I had to put that out there since I have a large audience. So flex instrumentation is awesome. And one of my favorites to check out, Ian Detterling, he has done a bunch of really cool flex arrangements. So, all right, that aside, just wanted to give that heads up before we get into this. Okay, GarageBand. So I'm gonna go over this kind of quickly. I can definitely do a more in-depth, slower tutorial if needed a little bit later. But I'm gonna start with a new project, audio, and then record using a microphone. So new. Let me just save this because this was the test I did earlier this morning, just to make sure that I could do it. I mean, I have done it before, but I was, you know, just a little like, all right, so many people are gonna watch this. So go ahead and click on empty project. And then you will want to choose audio, record using a microphone or line input. Okay, and so all these things pop up. So don't feel overwhelmed. I like to go ahead and kind of close things out. Turn off the metronome, turn off this counter thing. You can go ahead and close this out. Oh. So if you double click on this, it will close this out. And then, nope, that didn't work. Okay, yeah. So then click on this and that will kind of like, you know, isolate this. So that way you just have that. Like I said, definitely not a GarageBand expert. So if you're cringing right now because I'm clicking on a million things, sorry, just bear with me. Okay, so the tempo we're working with today is 150. I just kind of like to have this set so things line up a little bit better. It's not 100% necessary to change this. I just am in the habit of doing it. Okay, here we go. First up, find your click track. So, okay, I was like, where did I, so this is the sample one. Okay, so you're gonna go ahead and click and drag this into here. And you can see the sound waves here. So I like to kind of cut it off like pretty early so there's not all this space beforehand. So if you click above this little tracker thing will appear. And as long as this is selected, if you press Command and T, it will split the track. And then you can delete this part. And so I'm going to zoom this back out for a little bit, and so I'll bring it kind of to the beginning. I like to give a little space in the beginning just to kind of have some room. Again, it's just like a personal preference. There's no like direct reason why to do that. Okay, you've got your click track in place. Here's the moment you've been waiting for. We're going to put an instrumentalist in. So, make sure you have your score out while you're doing this. It will be really helpful. So you can add students either in score order or by groups or however you want to organize them. It's up to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and add student tracks. I'm going to put them all in. So I'm just clicking and dragging. I have this off the screen because it's just a little bit easier. We're going to edit them later, don't worry. Like I said, it's going to look like a strange instrumentation. It's not a typical one. We are going to be doing a flex arrangement. Just take a look at that. Elisa has secured the rights to the mechanical license and all that, in case you were wondering. Also, this is going to be under 10% of the piece for education purposes too. Just to kind of double be sure. Okay, so I have all of the parts that I'm gonna, so there are more, but for brevity's sake, I have at least all of the, the 4 parts that are covered in the flex arrangement. Okay, so now you should start with your strongest player in one section. So again, just for visual, you know your kids the best, so know which kid is really going to have the best kind of accuracy, and they can kind of be the guide for the rest of the section. So you are going to start and line their part up with the metronome click track. You're going to want to zoom in and focus on lining up the sound waves. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and start with the alto sax 1 and the click track. So to isolate them, to only hear them, you're going to click on these headphones. And so go ahead and zoom in a little bit so you can really get a precise view of the sound waves. Then again, to kind of trim this down, you can click on the tracker, Command T, delete that. Okay, so now you are going to, and let's line this up with the grid. So there's a little line there. So I like to put the tracker on the metronome click and then line the student part up there. So that's why it's important to zoom in. And then I'm going to see if this did line up pretty well. So I just play it. And the sound's not coming out. No. Okay. So let's see. GarageBand must have changed something while I was doing this. All right. So you should be able to hear. I wonder if it's because I'm in Zoom. All right, so like I said, welcome to teaching virtually, where you plan everything out, and then you know it doesn't quite work the way that you thought it would. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to save it and turn it off and turn it back on again, real quick. So you are living through what it is to be a virtual teacher. So if this happens to you, let's hope this works, and if not, we will go from there. Like I said, I tested this out before I got in here, but it, you know. So for some reason it won't play out loud. Okay, let's try this. So my face is gonna go away. Hopefully this will help. I don't know why. Okay, let me just make sure it's not this. Sorry, I'm troubleshooting in real time. I promised I tested this out beforehand, and so the output must have changed, maybe. Let's try this one more time. Okay, here we go. This should work. This should work. Okay, great. So anyway, can't see my face anymore. This is what it means to be a virtual teacher. You gotta think on your feet. Welcome to the club, friends. That's all I can say. Okay, so you can't see my face anymore, but I'm sure you can imagine it. You've seen it for a little while. So now I listen to this and make sure it lines up with the part. Whoops. And again, you want to make sure you have just the click track and the first kid you're working with. Okay, so that sounds pretty good. So now there is another saxophone who is going to be playing alto sax 2. So I'm going to line up their track now. So I will add that in. Again, do the same thing. Make sure you select the track, Command T to give yourself, cut off the space. Bring it over, zoom in. Zoom is, if you go to the right, that zooms it in. So again, move the tracker over, kind of line this up. Because students all performed to SmartMusic and they weren't using a click track or anything like that, as long as they did use the metronome, it lines it up pretty well. So then once that's lined up, let's see, okay, I think that looks pretty good. So then I'll take a listen. Okay, so I've got saxophones lined up. Okay, so saxophone sections lined up. Again, you would do this for every, and I'm using my hands like you can see me, but every kid in the section. And so there might be a couple of instances where things don't line up exactly. And so that's where, and I'll show you how I'll show you, we're gonna get to a part in a moment that will have that. So, all right, I know that alto sax 1 and trumpet have the same parts. So I'm going to work to align those next. Even though they're not in the same section, they're playing the same kind of melody line. So again, finding that Control T, moving the track over to that first metronome click, lining that up. And you can also move this around. So if you want to move that a little bit closer, just to make sure, you can also see here, like even on the second beat, you can see the pattern of the sound waves is pretty close here. So let's take a listen to that. Okay, so that's lined up pretty good. All right, and then I might again test it just with the alto sax too, just to make sure everything is lined up pretty well. Okay, so it sounds pretty good to me. All right, now let's get to the lower winds. So I'm going to uncheck all of these because they have a completely separate part. They're coming in on beat 3. So let's keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm gonna cut that off. And so I know that because I'm looking at my score and I'm saying, okay, what, if you don't have all kids coming in on beat 1, that's why this click track is really important, so you don't have to guess where you're gonna place these entrances. And so, like I said, they are coming in on beat 3. I found beat 3 with my track. And maybe not that much. I'm going to line up the euphonium to be coming in on beat 3. And so I might test this out against another one just to make sure that it makes sense and I'm hearing the right thing. So from the beginning. Okay, so that sounds pretty good. I know these levels all need to be adjusted. We'll talk about that in a moment. But that sounds pretty good to me, so I'll turn alto sax off, and lastly, I'll put in the tuba. Okay, so again, cut it off, click and drag to line up with the euphonium on this beat 3. Again, use that tracker to help line up. Okay, so now I'm gonna listen to them together. So I'll go back a beat just to give myself a little room. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. So first, I just want to make sure that everything lines up before I go any further. So again, work in small chunks. You don't have to do everything at once. So here it is from the very beginning, everything together. And like I said, it didn't take me too long to do this. It's not taking me hours to put it all together. And yes, the sound quality is not Eric Whitacre style beautiful, but my kids are hearing themselves play together, which I think is the main thing. Okay, so these ones. So in rehearsal, we have worked on these. But if you want to do a little bit of editing, especially on syncopation, you can kind of move things around. So I'm going to show you how to do that on just one of these beats because we're already at an hour. I'm almost done, I promise. So if you click Control T, make sure you also click Control T so you're not moving the entire thing. You're just moving that one kind of beat. And so you can find the metronome click. And again, this is not something that I do for every recording. In fact, I think it's good for kids to hear like, oh, we're not playing with rhythmic accuracy right here. This is what we can work on in rehearsal. This is what I'm talking about when I say I listen to my students' recordings, I put them all together, and I know how to plan for my rehearsal. Even though I can't hear kids all at one time, I play this for them, they can listen, and then they can also understand that even a tiny bit off in a full ensemble can make a difference. So Gonna move this over to be here. This is kind of good enough. Okay, this one's way over here. So again, make sure you Control T that in 2 places so you're not moving the whole track, just the part that's a little bit off. So like I said, I will do this for the final performance if like there are any parts that really need some help. Okay, maybe I'll move this one just a little bit. And so, oh no, 2 Control T's, 2 Control T's. How many times have I said that? And I still, you know, it's just like my students. How many times have I told you? Okay, move this over a little bit. So now this is all kind of lined up. So let's go back a little bit. So you can see that first one pretty lined up. So for your final performance, again, because your students are not playing live and with a conductor, it does make this a little more difficult. So for that final performance, do I do a little bit more editing like this? Yes, but in the rehearsals leading up to this, this is the stuff that I'm working on with my students. And so this is kind of that first phrase. So again, I might go and line, so you can see they're kind of, this is on the and, so maybe, you know, lining it up with one kid. But having this metronome click is really helpful because you can see the sound waves for each one, and it'll be helpful for you to know that. Okay, so again, let's talk a little bit about levels adjusting very, very briefly. Go back to the beginning. So if you are looking to kind of balance things out, again, this is kind of the general overall way to do that. There is a way to kind of get into the weeds and adjust really specific things, but I generally try to do a little bit of balancing, you know, so I'll turn everybody down at least a little bit. And I know this trumpet is coming through a little bit loud there, maybe the euphonium not as much. Okay, so you just adjust the levels, and so that's kind of like an artificial way to get good levels. And so then I'll go back and listen to it and kind of make adjustments as needed. So let me take away the metronome click. So this is just, again, this phrase took me just a couple of minutes to put together, and my students will be able to listen to it. So here's without the metronome click, and if you can't hear this, I'm so desperately sorry, but I promise it sounds pretty good, okay? So I guess I'm gonna see this afterwards. So here we go. Oh, no, there we go. Okay, and so again, that's how I, you know, made a full virtual ensemble in not too much time with not an impossible amount of effort, just using SmartMusic and GarageBand. So when you're done, you can, so you'll want to export it if you want it to be outside of GarageBand. So you can go to Share, Export to Disk. And so if you are going to be, you know, putting this anywhere, make sure you have the right kind of licensing to be doing so before you go out sharing, especially on public YouTube channels or anything like that, or sending it out to families. So just be careful of that. And so, you know, just put in what you want, you know, all that, press export, and it will go ahead and create that for you. Obviously, this section was longer than what I did today, but again, if you go section by section, phrase by phrase, it kind of makes it more manageable than trying to do the whole thing at once. All right, let's see. What did I forget to tell you? Okay. So, yes, so if you want to adjust individual levels, you can go into mix and then automation. So I'll show you that real quick. This is more advanced. I don't have enough time to get into it, but just so you're aware, if you want to play around with it, mix, automation. So for example, if I wanted this to kind of fade in, I can do that here. If I wanted to really make this saxophone part a lot louder in this one spot, I know I'm kind of just haphazardly doing this because I'm not really looking to do this in an intentional way. But that way, let's see, let's just listen to the saxophone so you can kind of hear how these levels change. I'll bring it way down over here. Okay, so just so you can see. So you can see with the levels change, and let me have the. So if you want to adjust individual ones, again, I don't do this for just rehearsal purposes. I just kind of adjust these as needed. But for the final performance, you might want to get more into this, especially if you're hearing, you know, various like background noises and that kind of thing. So I don't have time to get into this super much, but know that that is available to you. Okay, share to export to disk. Okay, almost done, I promise. All right, some pro tips. Command T splits a track. Make sure you isolate by using headphones solo, or you can mute, which is the speaker with the line through it. Use small phrases in chunks. Don't rely just on sound. Look at the sound waves. Start with sections, then expand to similar parts, then to the whole ensemble. For the final performance, you can change master reverb if you want to make it sound more like you're in a hall. Oh, my New Jersey accent came in through there. A hall. So if you go into master, master effects, and then you can change the reverb to, there are some pre-checked settings, so church or small hall or something like that. Again, these are kind of more advanced things, so maybe I can do another session later, or someone else who knows GarageBand later can do that. All right, so now that you've had this, you put it together, I have not put together any videos of my students playing. Instead, it's just easier for me to add pictures or program notes in a video along with the music using, I like to use iMovie. You can use Windows Movie Maker, but that way there's not this pressure to put together this, you know, if you have the skills to do it, definitely go for it. But if you are really hesitant about trying something new, keep it simple. Just put a video up without, you know, without doing too much to it. And then lastly, don't be afraid to ask your students for help. So if you don't have a lot of skills in terms of creating this, like in iMovie or something, I'm sure one of your kids does. And so if you want to have them put the video together and give them the track or whatever, again, make sure you have the right licensing to do so, then let them do it. Ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask students for help during this time. I'm honest with my students all the time. I ask for their help all the time. I tell them we're learning together. Because truly we were. When I was trying this out, I had no idea what I was doing. This took hours and days and months for me to develop to get to this point where I could make it easy for you to do. So I just have a few ending thoughts. I promise this will not take more than 2 or 3 minutes of your time. Make sure you have a mechanical license if you plan to share and distribute. Don't let the perfect be the opposite of the good. So don't aim for perfection through this. Just have it good enough. Good enough is okay in this instance. Make sure you keep your SmartMusic assignments short and have them due weekly, not daily, so you don't overwhelm students. If you think something is not possible, it probably, I should say, I don't know what I was trying to say here. If you think something is possible, if you think something is not possible, it probably is not possible in the way that you have done it in your classroom, but it can be done in some other way. So is this exactly, you know, if I had a band room, what I would be doing? No, of course not. This is not what I would have my students do, but I don't have a band room right now. I have a virtual classroom. So the main thing is that you might not be able to do things, they might not be possible, but you can get creative. The name of the game in virtual education is getting creative, finding creative ways to do things. Lots of people told me I would never be able to do this, that I would never be able to have a virtual ensemble that rehearses regularly, that, you know, produces these, you know, performances at the end of the semester. And I've done it 3 times, and I now have the IMES virtual band too. So it is possible. You just need to kind of think outside of the box, challenge your thinking, be okay with being uncomfortable and trying and failing. Okay, optional. Have 2 30-minute rehearsals per week. If you want to know how to do that, again, search the Facebook group. I have 2 30-minute rehearsals per week with my kiddos. You don't have to rehearse every day to make this effective. Sometimes if I'm finding that students are not recording in SmartMusic, I'll give them 5 to 10 minutes at the end to record. I did that today with my kiddos for choir and for band, just because I wanted them to get in. Some of them were missing a couple recordings. I wanted to update, the rehearsal recordings, and so I gave them time. I put them in breakout rooms. I had them screen share their screen so I could see that they were actually working on SmartMusic. I went through each room, gave feedback if necessary. Okay, take care of yourself. So make sure you're getting sleep, get out in the sunshine, give yourself, forgive yourself for not being perfect, but take care of yourself first. I am not going to be doing any live trainings over the weekend because today I decided I'm going to take care of myself and rest this weekend. I'll still be active in the Facebook groups and on Instagram, but I'm putting a boundary up on that for the weekend. Make sure you put those boundaries in place. And then this last thing, and this is my soapbox, it's not about sound quality right now. You're not going to make a perfect performance. You're not going to make a Eric Whitacre style performance without a lot of expensive equipment, student recording equipment, people being able to edit in high-level editing programs. It's not about sound quality. It's about music making and community. If you can get your kids to play together, to sing together, even if it's not all in the same space, I promise you, every time I show my kids how they sound like all together, they light up. So it is totally worth it. Okay, I'm going to ask for questions. I'm going to go into the Facebook Live. I'm not sure what that looks like. If you want to connect with me again on Instagram, I'm at _musical_rose, or you can take a look at my website, themusicalrose.com. I don't know what the Facebook Live looks like, but I can do a follow-up or more in-depth training if needed, but like I said, not this weekend. So, oh no, well, there's so many comments. Okay, I will make my PowerPoint available. I'm not going to make the recordings available because this is for another project. So we are going to be revealing it at the IMES virtual conference for teachers. So sorry, you're gonna have to wait. Sorry. Okay. Yes, you can use Audacity. When I make the final performance, do I also work in small chunks? Yes, I find that, again, it is a little bit easier for students to go ahead and record smaller chunks really well, especially because they're not playing with other people. So it's completely different than playing, with, a conductor at home. So I do make my students re-record the same parts because I tell them if it sounds exactly the same as the first time you did this assignment, then I didn't do my job and you didn't do your job. It should be improving every time. So for the final performance, I usually do like 3 or 4 bigger chunks. So not like, just 2 or 3 phrases, but bigger chunks, but I still make it smaller, and it's easy to, find transitions and stopping points that make sense. And no one's ever said, hey, did you have your students, play this in 3 chunks? Like, no one has ever said that to me. So it's easy to kind of edit those things together. Do I upload the finished recording to SmartMusic? No, I usually distribute through live class, so I just have them listen to the recording in Zoom and live class, because Zoom, you can share your computer sound out of that. Have I considered putting sections in separate GarageBand files and then combining them into a master copy? Is that too involved? I don't know. Like I said, my GarageBand skills are I'm sure a little bit limited. So if you have the knowledge to do that, I say go for it. If you know how to make this better for yourself, like I said, I am just a humble music teacher that is doing the best that she can with the skills and the knowledge that she currently has. This will be available after. So this will be available later in the group, the Facebook group. Okay, just looking through your, so there is, you could have a click track with subdivisions. Yes, that is an option on SmartMusic. So if you wanted to have it more specific, that's definitely possible. So yeah, you can definitely, or you could make, you could also put something into SmartMusic where if you wanted 16th notes played you know, you could do that. So just get creative for sure. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. All right, that looks like I tried to answer all the questions that I could see. I know there are like 75 comments, so I got through them. Feel free to leave me more questions, tag me in things. I'm here to help. There are probably other ways to do this, but this is just how I found that it worked for me. Thank you all for coming, and I'll see you around on the internet. Have a good evening.